We all know the statistics. Almost 700,000 children die every year from malaria. In Uganda alone, the disease claims the lives of 350 children every day. Of those who died last year, 3 were Gladys's children. Gladys is 62, a subsistence farmer, and lives in rural Uganda, where the threat of malaria is ever present. She cares as best she can for her family, but has very little disposable income to spend on medicines. The cost of anti-malarial healthcare is unmanageable for the average household. But if you care for 20 children, 12 your own, 6 grandchildren, 2 orphans like Gladys does, then life can be particularly bleak.
My children often fall sick with malaria almost every month, sometimes even 2 times a month. I take my children to hospital in Namuganga, but most of the time when we get there, we don't find any drugs.
When Gladys's children are considered seriously ill, she has to take them to the public health facilities, which provide medicines for free. The nearest one is more than 20 kilometers away, a treacherous journey on dusty tracks, and typically when she gets there, they don't have any medicine in stock to give her. Instead, she turns to the local unlicensed drug shops.
When we go to private clinics, the drugs are very expensive. They tell me that a dose is 5,000 shillings, but me, I just pay the little money I have and take half the dose. Then they tell me to look for the rest of the balance, so that they can sell me the rest of the treatment.
What malaria medicine are you given at the drug shops?
I don't really know all the names, but I only know quinine, chloroquine and Panadol.
The drugs she has been sold are no longer effective against malaria, but this is all she can afford to buy. The only effective anti-malarial artemisinin-based combination therapy, ACT, is sold at $6 to $10, which is far too expensive for the average household, who earn less than $1 a day.
At times, I don't take my children for treatment because I can't afford the medical fees. I've lost 3 children in the last 3 years because I had no money to buy the medication.
Unfortunately, Gladys's story is not unusual. Approximately half of all Ugandans suffer from malaria. A survey by the Ministry of Health and Medicines for Malaria Venture, MMV, showed that over 60% of people who suspect they have malaria get their medicines from the private sector.
We need to act fast in ensuring that ACTs are actually made available, because a larger proportion of the population access treatment from the private sector. Those that got the public sector, for the last 4 months between May and last week, they never had any ACTs. So even the 40% of the population that go to the public sector were not accessing the medicine, and they would resort to the private sector to get treatment. And in the private sector, they can't find actually the ACT, they only find the chloroquine and SP, and yet we know they are not effective. So there is a real danger that the population is exposed to at the moment.
Currently, when you go to these drug shops, you'll find that most of them are having chloroquine, tablets and injection, and some of them have got artemisinin tablets, and those ones are really very expensive. Artemisinin is like about 15,000 a packet.
This price is way beyond the pocket of most patients who are poor and have a seasonal income. In the end, they resort to local unlicensed drug shops where they self-prescribe. Jennifer is an unlicensed drug seller.
When you examine people, you find that their malaria is reoccurring. They fall sick when they don't have the money for treatment and only come to buy treatment during the harvest season when they have the money.
Our money here is seasonal. We get our money during harvesting. During the off-season, we don't have any money.
As mothers can't afford to buy a whole course of treatment, the drug dispensers simply cut up tablet strips to suit the patient's budget. This is a very dangerous practice. It can lead to resistance and calls for immediate action to train drug dispensers in both licensed and unlicensed outlets.
Because in these drug shops, you'll realize that sometimes they are licensed by trained people, but when you go down on the ground, you find that the person who is selling the drug is not that person who registered in the NDA. So they really need that training with using simple language and simple IEC materials.
We were promised to be taught about Coartem, but until now it hasn't happened yet. We request that they extend the seminars about the Coartem to us in the future so that we can know how to use it.
We need to overcome the issue of high prices. So if we can have subsidized ACTs in the private sector, and we have also overcome the challenge of accessibility of the drug outlets in the rural areas, then we shall be able to overcome this in the private sector. In the public sector, I do not know what can be done, because if the government has done their best, and it we are seeing the whole districts and regions in the country are going without ACTs for 4 months, then I don't know what best they can do.
I am requesting that Coartem is at least brought to these local clinics at a cheap price, at about 200 shillings, because this is all we can afford.
I never got any Coartem in the local clinic. We would be very grateful if you bring it here at a low price.
Gladys and Agnes represent the majority of malaria sufferers in Africa. The world needs to make ACTs affordable for them. This could be done with a subsidy.